welcome to the first episode of a new segment of mine called Monthly Movie Madness. This is a segment that I made specifically to talk about movies that I saw throughout a certain month. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about what I saw in the month of January of 2024. The whole reason why I made this segment is because I stated in that first video that I did coming back to YouTube. By the way, I just want to say thank you all so much for the amount of support that I got on that video. It means a lot. I have gotten a significant amount of subscribers since then. And this is the first video after that coming back video where I'm actually making content again. And the reason why I wanted to do this segment is I mentioned in that last video, I used to have a movie review channel and I got so burnt out because I felt like I had to talk about every movie that was coming out on a weekly basis. And some of those movies I just felt like didn't deserve like their own individual video. I just felt like a lot of them were just like the movie of the week. So I made this segment so I can talk about movies that I saw throughout the month. And there's definitely going to be times in the future where if I saw like a movie and it had like a huge impact on me, there might be a chance that I might do a full-on video of it. But like, I don't know, bottom of the barrel movies that like I don't know, I didn't feel like needed as much description or depth or analysis. This is what the segment is for. And this is actually a really good time to start this segment because throughout the month of January, you have a lot of stinkers. Hollywood kind of just like submits a lot of low-key movies, specifically horror movies, and we're going to be talking about those soon, where they just want to get them out of the way. And then once, you know, the summer kicks off, we get our summer blockbusters. So yeah, let's talk about these movies that I saw throughout January of 2024.
Why aren't you saying anything?
Night Swim. This was directed by a guy named Bryce McGuire, and I actually saw the trailer for this movie when I saw Thanksgiving last year, and it caught my interest. I thought it was a pretty well-crafted trailer. Didn't show too much. It was actually a really good teaser trailer, and it was enough for me to get interested in the movie because also James Wan produced it. So basically what the movie is about, it's about this family who moves into this house after the father, played by Wyatt Russell. He is a former baseball player who is suffering from MS, and they are just trying to be closer to the hospital. But when they move to this house, they notice that it has a pool. So they think this is a good opportunity for them to just relax at this pool to treat his MS. And as they continue to live at this household, they find out that the pool is haunted. This is actually a feature film of a short film that this guy directed. And I actually did see the short film before seeing this feature film. This is actually something that James Wan is known for, is taking short film ideas and making them into features. He did that with his own film Saw, and most recently he did it with Lights Out. That was obviously a really well-known short film, and he produced it into a feature film. So he's doing the same thing with this short film, Night Swim, and the short film, I didn't really like it. I appreciated it from a indie filmmaker aspect. I thought it was very well filmed, but the story was very just very simplistic. I think if there was anything about the short film that I appreciated was the simplicity of it, but that being said, there's not a lot going for it. I'll put a link down below so you guys can check out the short film, but essentially it came out in 2015 and it's a woman swimming in her pool at night. She's waiting for her husband to get home. And the only scares that really happen in the film is when she goes underwater and she's looking from above and she sees that somebody is outside of her pool. She swims back up thinking that it's her husband and nobody's there. And she goes back underwater and she sees that somebody's there. And that's pretty much the only scares of the film. There's a being that appears at the end and then she's taken underwater. And that's pretty much the only thing the short film has going for it creatively. I can see where if someone was swimming in their pool, like I'm assuming this director was swimming in their pool one time and they were looking up and they saw the ripples of the water bending the light above them, making like the image of the outside of the pool unclear. So I can see where they would think that that would be like a really cool concept for like a scary movie. And I appreciate the fact that he went out and made a short film based on this idea. That being said, it's just very, very minimal. And it's hard to believe that James Wan saw this short film and he decided to make an entire feature film out of it. Did they add to this simplistic short film? I don't think so. If anything, I think it just proves that this short film was weak in the first place and it should have been maybe questionable as to whether or not this could have worked as a feature film. Like, you can tell that they're trying to add things to make this concept more scary. For example, one of the kids is playing in the pool during the day, and he is grabbed by something in the skimmer of the pool, and it's like this ghost ghoul thing. A lot of these ideas are taken from other movies. That's an It, you know, when Pennywise is in the drain and stuff. So it's like, okay, whatever, like it's just doing their own thing. But then there's scenes in the film where people are being dragged down under, and they realize the depths of the pool are bigger than what it's perceived to be outside. And that's obviously a scene from A Nightmare on Elm Street. So it just feels like the scares in this movie are just taking stuff from other movies because it's recognizing that the initial plot is pretty weak. Another thing too is they're adding subplots in this movie to make this pool more intimidating than it actually is. Like, you know, all you have to do, like if you find out that this pool is haunted, you would think that, oh, we're just not gonna get in the pool. But because the husband has suffered from MS, he gets addicted to being in this pool. There's like something in the water, it's affecting him. And it's almost as if he becomes obsessed with this pool, as if he loves the pool, as if he wants to fuck the pool. Like it's like this hilarious thing ever. So they try to figure out a way to like just make the pool more apparent than it actually is. Like, thank God this movie takes place in the summer, because if it didn't and if it was winter, then the pool would have to wait 6 months to haunt this family. But yeah, I didn't really care for the movie. I think the plot was just pretty weak. It is pretty inspiring to always see a filmmaker who made a short film and it's being made into a feature film. And I'll always be there to support filmmakers who are able to experience that, and I hope to experience that one day. But in terms of this, I think this is a really good example of your short film just not being strong enough to validate a feature film. So yeah, unfortunately, didn't really like Night Swim. January is just known for having horror movies out that aren't necessarily that good. But yeah, I saw it, you know, the haunted pool movie.
Look at this thing.
I can't even see it.
Like a face breast.
The next movie that I saw after Night Swim made me feel really old because I saw the trailer for this last year, and I just remembered thinking, wow, they're rebooting Mean Girls? Like, Mean Girls is not that, oh, wait a minute, it's from 2004. Shit, that was 20 years ago. I had this overwhelming feeling where I was like, man, is this what it felt like when my parents saw the trailer for Footloose 2011? Like, I don't know, it's a weird feeling seeing like something from your childhood being rebooted, and especially like Mean Girls, because that has over the years become such an influence on pop culture. Like lines like, get in loser, we're going shopping, or that's so fetch. The fact that this is being made, or the concept of talking about rebooting Mean Girls is even being spoken about, it's just weird to me. But they did it, and to give it some credit, it's not only a reboot of the movie, it's actually an adaptation of the Mean Girls musical that came out after the success of the first movie. So it's a reboot and a musical at the same time. And to talk about the marketing of this film for a second, I think they did a terrible job in terms of like telling people that this was a musical. The only thing in the trailers to showcase that this is musical based is that the characters are dancing, but it really doesn't mean anything in the realm of Mean Girls, because there are scenes from the first Mean Girls that are very exaggerated, like, you know, showcasing that high schoolers are like zoo animals and stuff. So there's nothing really in the trailer to tell us that this is a musical. You could tell that a lot of people didn't know what they were going into when going to see this movie.
No, I can't even watch when she touches his hair. And I watch the snake eat a cow. Regina needs to be toppled. Sorry, Gretchen, I swear we'll get our party now. Candy cane, please.
That being said, after watching this film, it's actually pretty good. Now, I think it's completely unnecessary. That first film is great, and if you want to go see a Mean Girls musical, go see an actual musical. Like, you know, support Broadway production. But if you want to watch a musical from the comforts of your home due to things that are going on in our world, I think this is your best opportunity. The movie is actually well crafted. There are some things that they do differently from the first movie. This is actually a Gen Z interpretation of Mean Mean Girls, so it's happening in 2024. So not only are you getting the musical aspect, but you're getting the aspect of what if this was all happening in our year. If there were some things that I could point out that were better than the first one, which isn't a whole lot because this is verbatim line by line, just like the first one. I watched the first one right before watching this reboot, but if there were things that I had to pick that I really appreciated, it would have to be the actors that portrayed Damien and Janice. These guys stole the show. The actress who played Janice was actually the voice actress for Moana, so I'm really happy that she's getting more work because I believe that Moana was like her first gig in the movie industry, and she does an excellent job in terms of songs in this. And not gonna lie, I have been listening to some of the songs from the Spotify playlist. That being said, there are people that are fans of the musical, and apparently they're not liking these renditions of these songs. As someone who didn't see the musical, I liked a lot of them, most specifically the Halloween song. A lot of the choreography in this is also really good. There's camera work in here where they're going like under people's legs as they're moving, and that's such a hard thing to do in terms of filmmaking because you got to make sure that nobody is hitting the camera and the choreography is looking well as like you're going through these hallways and stuff. So those were parts that I just thought were the highlights of this film, like really well done filmmaking. I think the weakest aspects for me in particular, I think the actress that played Katie. Now, let me state real quick, I think she did an amazing job at playing nice Katie when she moves from South Africa and she's going to the high school. She's nice at first, and I think she did an amazing job playing that portion of herself. But then as the movie progresses, she becomes mean Katie because she's hanging out with the mean girls, and I don't think the transformation is as strong as Lindsay Lohan's transformation in the first Mean Girls. Like you can tell in that first film there is a significant change, whereas this Katie, it's just not strong enough. You can just tell that like she is a nice girl trying to be a mean girl, and I've seen her in other films where she is kind of like that snarky character, like in Spider-Man Far From Home, and I can see why producers picked her to play this version of Katie, but it just didn't really work well in this film. I very much like Lindsay Lohan's mean version of this character a lot better, but in terms of like the nice character, oh, she kicked it out of the park. So yeah, I think I would watch the first Mean Girls over this any day, but if I was over at a group of friends' house and they wanted to watch a musical, I would not mind watching this. This is a pretty, for what it is, the idea of rebooting Mean Girls, I think it was successful and they did it very well. I just think that this was a completely unnecessary movie overall, though.
What's going on?
I think we have a new neighbor.
The next movie we're going to be talking about is available exclusively on Shudder, and that is Destroy All Neighbors. I was interested in seeing this movie because I saw a lot of Facebook and Instagram ads regarding it, and when it comes to horror comedies, I love horror, but if there is a comedy aspect of it, I think I'm drawn to it a lot more. And from the trailers alone, it also looked like there was a rock and roll element, so I was really hooked on the concept of this. Basically, it's about a struggling artist who is living with his girlfriend in an apartment, and they get a new neighbor who is incredibly loud. He's playing his music. He's not being very considerate towards his other neighbors, and the main character's girlfriend tells him that he should use this as an opportunity to be more assertive and like, you know, stand up for himself. So he actually goes to the neighbor's apartment, and after a bit of a scuffle, he ends up accidentally killing the neighbor. And as he tries to figure out ways to hide the body, he accidentally kills more people in the process. And to top it all off, because of the guilt that he is experiencing because he accidentally killed his neighbor, the corpse starts talking to him in his head. At least that's what the movie's trying to perceive itself. This movie, there's a lot that I appreciate about the movie. I think from a low budget standpoint, there's a lot of practical effects, like, you know, because this dude is experiencing this like body, like talking to him in his head, he sees like forms of the body manipulating his reality around him, and the dead body parts are just jumping around. There's one part in particular where the intestines turn up the switch on a radio and stuff. So these are very well done practical effects. And the guy who is playing the bad neighbor is played by Alex Winter from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So it's good to see him. It's good to see that he's actually doing a lot more work. That being said, I didn't really like this film, and I think it's really all due to the fact that I didn't like a lot of the characters. There are people in this film that are just very, very mean to this guy.
What is this? It's a progressive form of prog. I've been calling it prog squared. The only way I listen to your music is if you tied me up at gunpoint and you forced me to. And don't play it here again or you're fired.
And there are characters in the film that should be supportive of him, like his girlfriend, because they're both in this situation where they're having to deal with this bad neighbor playing this music, but the girlfriend takes this as an opportunity of like, oh, you're just making excuses to why you can't finish your music. It's like, bro, no, this is like bullshit. Like, we shouldn't be listening to like this music. So there's a lot of things that just don't make sense in the realm of like how people should act in real life. There is an interesting concept this film explores where the people that he accidentally kills, he finds out later on that they were actually influential members of the rock community. And if he had just helped them out for a second, maybe he would have benefited from them and he would have been able to finish his album. And I think that's just really where the film just doesn't work for me, is that concept alone really could have worked if it wasn't for the fact that these people are just so irritable towards this guy, and he has every right to like neglect them in the first place. The movie also doesn't follow its own rules. So it's perceived in the movie that the reason why this dude is seeing this head talk to him is because it's all in his own head. And the head is explaining like, I'm living rent free in your head. So you're under the impression that this is all happening in his mind because he's going crazy because he just killed somebody. But as he is trying to get rid of these body parts from this dead body, the body parts start interacting with the world around him. Like in particular, there's a scene where there's the hand from the body. It's very similar to that of like Evil Dead 2. It pushes the car in reverse, and that's how he ends up killing another person. So it's not necessarily him sometimes that kills anybody. It's actually the dead body parts that kill other people. And then there's one scene in particular where a character witnesses him killing somebody, and that character calls the police. And then when he goes to jail, he has a lawyer there, and the lawyer is like, oh, well, like, hey, you're free to go. There was never a dead body. So it's never really properly explained if there are actual dead bodies in this film or if it's all in his head. There's a lot of story elements that just don't really make sense. There is a really cool demon effect in the last part of the film where it kind of reminded me of Tenacious D a little bit, but that's really all that the film has going for it. I really wish that they could have like push the rock element a little further. But overall, there's just a lot of elements that really didn't work in the film for me. I love how Shudder is pushing a horror comedy film out. That's great. I'll always be there to watch the newest Shudder exclusive. But in terms of this film, it didn't work for me.
You woke up the beast.
The next film that I'm going to be talking about is a film that I actually watched at home. I rented it. It's called Mayhem. I believe this is a French film. I could be wrong. There's definitely a lot of characters in the film that are French, but the movie also takes place in Thailand, so I'm pretty sure it's a French film, but it's about an ex-convict who escapes from France after being in prison for so many years, and he changes his identity and moves to Thailand, and he actually builds a family while being there for 5 years. He has a girlfriend / wife or whatever, and she also has a daughter, and he ends up adopting her as his surrogate daughter. While he's living in Thailand, he delivers luggage at an airport. He is also a fighter, and one day, to gain this land for this house that him and his girlfriend are trying to get, he is caught up in this drug smuggling thing where he's trying to get some drugs through the airport, and he ends up failing this task, and the drug mob go to his house. They end up beating him up and killing his wife and taking his daughter, and this is basically a revenge killing spree type of movie. I was interested in seeing this film because the trailer showcased a scene that was very similar to that of The Raid Redemption, which is one of my favorite martial arts films. So I was a little hesitant because I didn't want this to be exactly a copy of The Raid Redemption, but from the trailers itself, it looked like there were some original scenes, and that trailer did a really good job in bringing me in and watching this film. And that being said, I don't think the film should be called Mayhem because it's not exactly ultra violent. There are a lot of violent scenes. This is a bloody movie, but for the most part, the film is very tame. It's a very serious film about a guy trying to find his daughter in Thailand and Bangkok. The fighting sequences are pretty well done, and even though there are times where the film is incredibly gory, it does realize that it's in a pretty realistic universe and it's pretty self-contained. Like, there are instances where this character is really beaten up and he's not invincible. He's just like a regular fighter dude. He's not like John Wick or Chris Hemsworth from Extraction. He is someone who gets the shit kicked out of him a lot in this film. And what I also really appreciate about the film is when this dude ends up killing somebody, it does affect him. It's not like this thing where like he kills like someone, he goes on to the next person, he goes in the next room. It's like he stands there looking at what he's done for a second, and I think that's attributed to the realistic tone that this film has. I was very surprised because this is not necessarily like an overall ultra-violent action film. This is a very serious like thriller about a guy trying to find his daughter. It's very similar to Liam Neeson's Taken. There's actually a subplot that revolves around human trafficking. I think the only part of the film that didn't necessarily work for me was the ending. You find out in the ending, without going into spoilers, that a character has actually been in this location the entire time because of this other character, and the motives of why this character was keeping this character in this location are just not strong enough, or it's just not built up properly throughout the film, and it's just kind of like this random thing that's mentioned. So I would say that the ending and the plot twist is the weakest part, but overall, I think this was a pretty decent film. I don't think it's anything to rave about. I don't think it's like the Raid Redemption, but in terms of like it being like a foreign like action thriller, I think it was pretty good for the most part.
Hey, guys.
Wait a minute, what the hell is going on down there?
Oh, whoa.
We gotta get out now, guys.
Let's get out.
Oh, my God.
So the last film that we're going to be talking about that I saw in January is called I.S.S. When I saw the trailer for this, I was so hooked. It looked very interesting. I love sci-fi thrillers that look like they're taking place on a space shuttle and there are characters stuck on this said space shuttle, very similar to Alien. So I was hooked. So what the movie is about is these astronauts and these cosmonauts on the International Space Station. They all go there to collaborate in the name of science, and it's a very friendly alliance that they have while doing research on this space station. But while they're on this space station, they see that the entire world is engulfed in this missile attack, and they're wondering what the hell is going on. They're trying to reach their space stations back home, and the American team gets a classified message from NASA on Earth stating, hey, we are now at war with Russia. You have to try to take the ISS by any means possible. And it creates this friction of like, do the Russians know that we're at war as well? Did they receive the same message? Are we gonna try to take the space station? Are the Russians gonna try to kill us? This movie made me incredibly anxious because there is a lot of performances that are very dependent on subtext, where a character is just looking at another character and you're wondering what that character is thinking or what they're gonna do next or what their motives are. It's a very well-crafted film, and the look of the film as well, because they're on the space station, everybody is floating. It actually looks like they're in outer space, and throughout the movie, the entire movie takes place on the space station, so nobody's ever walking. And when conflict finally arrives in this movie, when people attack each other and there's stabbings that might be involved, blood is floating in the space station as well. So the look and feel of all of this happening on a space station, I thought was very well done. I think what the film does very well is the tension, like how certain people are gonna react and you know, who's on whose side, who favors who, and you're wondering that throughout the entire movie. But where I think the film kind of dissolves a little bit is when these confrontations finally happen, and the reasons why they happen, I think they're very poorly executed. There's a character on the ship who loses a loved one, and it's because of someone on their side actually, but they automatically assume that it's someone on the other side, when in reality, the person they loved is from that side, so it doesn't really make sense that someone on their own team would kill that person. It's really hard to explain without going into spoilers, but when you really watch the movie and you think about like why these two people are attacking each other, you start to think it doesn't really make sense. There's also a character in the film whose intentions change and it doesn't really make any sense. It's explained in the beginning of the film that he has 2 daughters on Earth and his only priority is getting back to Earth and making sure that they're okay during this conflict. But at the end of the film, his tune starts to change and his motives change as well, where he's trying to collect like these things that the scientists are working on to help radiation sickness on Earth so he can gain the credit. I don't know, it's not very explained well properly. It's led to believe that maybe he just had cabin fever and he's going stir crazy because of the amount of anxiety that's going on the ship and the mistrust that's happening. But I don't know, I just think that that part of the film where the characters are finally confronting one another, I don't think the reasons are totally validated. I feel like if anybody was on this ship, and it's established very well that they all have like a good team relationship, I feel like if they were to receive messages from like the planet, like any given person would be like, hey, like I just want to get back home. I don't want to hurt any of you. Like, can we just talk about this? I don't know. I just think that the confrontation part of this movie is the thing that's lacking. Like, the movie is very well executed when, like, you know, it makes you feel anxious when people just aren't talking to each other and they're talking in separate rooms and they're trying to, like, you know, figure out a plan, what to do next. But when they finally confront each other, I think that's like where the film is just like at its weakest. So if you're really into space movies and you like that isolation feel that you see in a lot of other films like Alien and Prometheus and stuff like that, I think this film is going to give you that. That being said, I just didn't really care about the characters overall. And yeah, guys, oh my God, that was my first monthly movie madness. I'm gonna try. I think the thing now that I'm looking back at like filming all of this, I think I was rambling a little bit. So what I'm gonna try to do for next month is I'm actually going to talk about the films right after I see them, because for today I talked about like 5 films on one day, and one of the films I saw like 3 or 4 weeks ago, so my memory is a little bit hazy. So I think that's what I'm gonna try to do, is film each individual night where I see these films, just to make these reviews a little bit cohesive, because I think I was rambling a little bit. But let me know what you appreciate about this video. Let me know what movies you want me to talk about next month. I'm going to try and release these videos probably the Friday closest to every 31st. This video might be a little late. I apologize. I'm actually gonna go visit my family in Florida. But yeah, that was the first episode of Monthly Movie Madness. Thank you guys so much. Look forward to more videos soon. I have a lot of stuff planned, and yeah, please subscribe, and I'll see you later.